everyone, welcome back to another interview, another Drum Dog interview. We have a very special guest today, all the way from Australia, Ben Shannon. Thank you so much, Ben, for being here.
Hello, world. Hello, Drum Dog. Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. And I'll say for anyone that's not familiar with Ben and his incredible and varied background, I kind of came across you, Ben, through Dropbear Lodge, which is a band you're a part of. Recently released an EP in February. We're gonna talk about that phenomenal EP. For anyone signed up to our newsletter, I've spoken about this EP. I'm a big fan of it. But I feel like limiting you to the title of drummer would be a disservice, because you're kind of everywhere in the music industry. You have many different hats, and we'll talk about that as well. I mean, first off, let us know how you're doing, how your week is going. You're just telling me about a very interesting and different kind of drumming gig.
Yeah, just had a rehearsal for we're playing it at the footy. So what you would know as probably the rugby league. Yeah, it was great. So we're doing like this corporate drumline thing, playing at halftime, a lot of choreography and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and it's turned out really well. And it's kind of a different gig I don't normally do, but great to try and get in the role of what that gig needs and explore that different skill set. A lot of movement, a lot of choreography, and the importance of stickings too, particularly for all drumline stuff. And we're playing in unison and movement and stuff like that. So, yeah, it'll be really cool. Looking forward to it. And otherwise, the week's been really good. Just started my PhD maybe about a month ago.
Nice.
So I've been chipping away at that, kind of working out what I'm doing. I kind of know but don't know, but that's fine. It'll all take care of itself. Yeah, pretty chill week this week, which is good because the last few weeks have been quite hectic, just with various rehearsals and gigs. And I had a gig on Tuesday actually, for a mate of mine who just moved house, the sax player in Dropbear Lodge actually, and with a lot of local experimental musicians, he put together this piece. Basically, he just had a baby, and he moved house at the same time.
Ooh.
It's pretty hectic on his end.
Wow.
It was a pretty out sort of piece, but I was essentially, with some other percussionist friends, we were untangling many coat hangers over the course of half an hour and put contact mics on a closed rack and had gongs. And yeah, it was pretty out, but I think it worked really well. Like, I think with that kind of music, when it has a strong concept, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Particular stuff that's a bit more, not radio music or whatever, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
So it sounds like you were deep in experimental territory there.
Particularly with that gig, like that gig was pretty bizarre in the best way possible. Like it was more about movement and we ended up hanging some clothes up on some clothes hangers. People listening to this are going to be thinking, what the hell is this dude on about?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all part of the fun. I love doing a variety of different things. So yeah, it was cool.
Amazing. I mean, it sounds like this is like the tip of the iceberg. I think when I was doing some research before this interview, that, as I said, I kind of came across you through Dropbear Lodge, but that really was just the entry point. And I mean, on your YouTube channel, for instance, there's some incredible content, and I can link it in the description for anyone listening or watching. And I'd love to hear more about it. But there's basically a video, because you're not just a drummer, you're a composer and a conductor as well, I guess, right? Among many other things.
Yeah, I guess. Well, the conductor is the conductor role is this creative process called Conduction, and that's what I'm looking at with my PhD, which is conducted improvisation.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I was lucky enough to learn about. Maybe we can get into that at a point. But yeah, I guess, composer, drummer, work a lot in arts administration too, with a label I work for, and really passionate about curating a lot of gigs and performances. For Australian experimental kind of music, not just that kind of style, but folk, rock, metal, prog, with all the different bands I kind of play in. and have been involved with bringing some international artists out too, which has been cool. Yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, a few of the roles, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm sort of doing. Yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, the videos I saw on the YouTube channels, they were very captivating in the sense that it was something that I don't think I'd ever seen before. So to describe it to viewers, and perhaps feel free to correct me if I'm doing a bad job. You put it really well in the sense that you were conducting, but it was an improvisational piece. So you had an orchestra in front of you, and then you had your kit, and sometimes you'd hop on the kit, you'd play, and sometimes you'd step off and you'd conduct, and it was this kind of living, breathing, transforming piece of music that you would sometimes be a part of, sometimes step out of, and lead it in a new direction. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, totally, Dan. So that specific video you're thinking about is got nominated for, it's just this Australian Jazz Award thing. I mean, awards, whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. But was honoured to be put forward for it. And basically, the brief for that was to come up with a kind of a project where you're really extending yourself. And I wanted to combine my practice with conduction, which I learned about in 2017 at the Banff Centre, participating in the Jazz and Sonic Arts program from Tyshawn Sori. But the School of Conduction is from an incredible American, I'm going to call him a conductionist. He did many things, but he came up with this process, Butch Morris, in like the 70s and 80s, and it's all that related to the Anthony Braxton School of Thought and all those kind of sort of the whole loft scene, experimental music that came out of New York and surrounding areas in that time. But wanted to look at combining conduction with a band, so kind of having two concurrent performances or things happening at the same time. Because, the conduction is something that I wish everyone should try and experience at a point in time, because it's not quite noted, it's not notated, it's not quite improvised. It sits in this different sphere. And I think because of that, the results you can get creatively are extraordinary. And in terms of the what it feels like to participate in terms of a level of flow state or creative satisfaction is something I hadn't experienced before. So that's why I'm so into that process, which involves numerical and gestural cues and a whiteboard. I'm trying to summarize, but there's a video on YouTube where I do a tutorial on, how conduction works. But you could be playing drums, Dan, and I could give you a whiteboard that says happiest memory or green or autumn or spring or any multitude of stimuli. And it just really gets to the heart of creativity and improvising for me. Like, I found that when you participate in it, there's no time to think about, like, what's this fucking stupid lick I've been practicing. Like, it kind of it removes the ego from creative practice, and that's something I'm really fascinated about. Among many other applications for it, like I've tried it in schools, and I want to look at. I feel like it's a really good gateway for people to get into improvising that kind of removes all the elitism and prestige or whatever that jazz can sometimes kind of have. If that all makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm curious to know more about, because you're it seems like you're at the center of the group, but which isn't to say that are you still kind of receptive to if you feel like a certain part of the orchestra is giving off a certain energy, do you lean into it, or do you sometimes ask them to pull it back? Like, is it that simple, or
I definitely think of it as a feedback loop, and the hardest thing with conduction is just the initial cue. So what that might be. Okay. I guess it's like with anything, whether it's like a chore or like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, or practice, or getting up off the couch, or like you can think of it on a macro level, but it's literally just starting the task. The first that I can find can be the trickiest sometimes creatively. But I think once it starts to happen, like the conduction starts, I generally go into a sort of flow state and really feel like it's evolving. And that's something I'm trying to look at, like who's leading who, as the conductor, is how do those roles change as it develops? But definitely, if there's an idea that I'm hearing that I guess subconsciously or consciously, I guess I'm really resonating with, I'll maybe bring that out a bit more, or get the person who's doing it, or people, or whatever subsection of group, to develop it even more. Pardon me, sorry, man. I got the spaghetti bolognese burps apparently. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's something I'm trying to get better at explaining, and that's why I want to study it, or am studying it, and have been quite intensely since 2017, because it's just this really profound, beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so different as well. Like earlier you said, it may not be radio music, if we want to use that term, but I don't think that detracts at all from the integrity and the value that it has. And I think the phrase you used of whether it's the conductor leading the music, or the music leading the conductor, I think is a great image that in my mind makes a lot of sense.
Let me just fix that light up. Hang on 2 seconds. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's like, I guess, I've just lost my train of thought there. That light just totally hit me for 6 runs. I'm trying to understand that relationship more. But also, like, it's just my approach on conduction. Like, I'm trying to be really aware of where it's come from, what it represents, and particularly as a white Australian, that's something I'm trying to be really aware of, and how I can do my part to represent this practice in a way that is honouring what has happened before me. Which is, I'm still, I feel like I'll always be trying to work that one out. But it's just kind of different subsets of questions you kind of have, So yeah.
This is making me want to at very least give it a go. Maybe not in its purest form, and I might be doing it a disservice. But I think what it sounds interesting to me, even as a process of expressing yourself musically in a different way that you're not used to. That's at least the angle that sounds very appealing to me. Whether I'm the one holding up stimuli and signs, or someone is doing it to me, I think that it would be interesting to go through that process, then listening back to what you've made, because I feel like it would be so different from a regular format of jamming or improvising or rehearsing.
Absolutely. That's something that, I have gotten, I used to find difficult with free improvising many years ago, but I think about it a lot differently now. But with conduction, and with the whiteboard in particular, like, what you can do with that is, like, I remember we did a gig where I put up varying, I can think of like something to the effect of like Mars in 7/4, or another video that's on YouTube somewhere. I think I had like Machines in 3/4. But this one gig we did, went around all these different planets, and the stimuli that I came up with was related to just like planets and the solar system and stuff like that. And the audience couldn't see anything that was on the whiteboard. And after the gig, I remember someone in the audience came up and they were like, "Oh, that sounded like you were traveling through the solar system and different planets." And I was just like, "Fuck yeah, that's amazing that you could," not that, you can interpret it however you want, but what we were trying to convey musically, they could hear that story.
Yeah.
And so to like, I guess to sort of talk more to the idea of the narrative and other tools that could be used, I'm looking at doing more stuff with different creative practitioners. So whether that's like poets, artists, ceramicists, actors, which I did recently for the university I'm studying at. I got asked to help out with O Week with some first year students and some ensemble stuff. And that was really fascinating and rewarding to see some of these ideas that I'd tried to pass on to these students and how they could integrate that. Cross-disciplinary music making and I think too, when people have seen conduction that might not be generally into that kind of music, because it's so visually striking, it seems to resonate in a different way. And then I guess thinking about it as, the term experimental music and what does that mean, and is that necessary, or what does that achieve? That's all the stuff I'm like. I really think it could be a lot more accessible.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you're talking about the process being visually striking, I think certainly even just watching a YouTube video, I felt that I think being there in the same space and being part of something that is fresh and kind of people's neurons just firing, there's something special about that. And I guess that's why historically people loved jazz and the improvised nature of jazz, because it was all fresh and immediate rather than rehearsed, which isn't to say one is better than the other, but there's just that element of what's coming. I don't know. No one knows. Maybe the musicians don't even know. And that's the mystery is fun.
Absolutely. And I think the in terms of when I'm playing drums or compositionally, the kind of music that I like to play most, I mean, I've got like my prog band that I love for different reasons and other things. But Milton, Gogh, or Shamin. So Shamin, for example, is piano and drums. It's kind of composed, but then it kind of isn't. Like, because I've been playing so long with Sophie, we'll be playing these charts, and then she'll just jump to a completely different section without me kind of knowing, but we're kind of aware that it's always moving and evolving, and little set sort of motifs that we'll go into a solo section, and we have that trust to just let it go anywhere, whether that's the groove kind of dissipates or comes in and out. So I really love those kind of musical scenarios where it's engaging in all those kind of approaches. One part might be really set, and then the next part's totally free, and then how all those elements can act together. And I think that is, that's at least the way I'm trying to push that style forward in a I guess an approach that I can really resonate with, and just finding what I think is my voice and what is the most creatively satisfying. And that's kind of all I'm trying to do, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, this comes up so often when I'm speaking to drummers about finding your own voice as a musician, as a drummer, and someone that wants to express himself creatively. And you've touched on a few things already, and perhaps here we can start bridging and talking about Dropbear Lodge slowly. But the approach, your own approach to knowing what you're going to say on a composition, or whether it's a track on the Dropbear Lodge album, or it's something you're about to do as a conductor, do you go in with a mindset, or do you let the piece kind of say something to you first?
That's a great question. I mean, it depends on like the project, the people in the band, how the song's written. With Dropbear Lodge, we started that band. The guitarist James Wengrow, he's been in New York for over 10 years now, but he came back around COVID time, and I'd already been playing a lot with Martin and Zach and Sophie. That's how Shamin started, from jamming. Like, we recorded an album of Martin's work like many years ago. It's all kind of related. And then with Zach, the bass player, I play in like 3 or 4 bands with him, probably more. Like, it's just over the years, varying things. But with Dropbear Lodge, we kind of just got together the purpose of just playing to really push each other. And we were heavily inspired by like the 80s and 90s Brisbane scene, and this band in particular, Artisans Workshop. But the idea of just getting together to really push each other and work on a sound, and then the tunes kind of just came in. We all sort of wrote stuff, and they took so long to learn, but which I absolutely loved, and some that we didn't get time to record. That we will do another record at a point. It'll be in, who knows how long or short or whatever. But man, we recorded that in, like, I think it's on the Bandcamp. I'd have to have a look. Like 2022 maybe.
Okay, wow.
2021. I don't know. It's on the Bandcamp. Like, it's just sometimes with releasing music, I'm sure you can relate. Like, there's all these moving parts, and just so glad to get that record out, because we think it's, what we were going for. I shouldn't say what we think. It's what we're going for is what we think the Australian experimental sound is, or what we're trying to contribute to that, the ongoing development of that sound. And yeah, like, the artwork's pretty playful, like it's nothing wrong with being super serious, but I think there's a bit of that, the word we use, larrikin nature, coming through in the music. It's kind of like a bit comical at times, but it's very intense. And everyone contributed different compositions, and everyone's different styles coming through. But yeah, we just jammed every Monday for, I'm going to say, around a year, like pretty much every Monday. Worked really hard on getting all that rep together, and just having a regular group of people to play with, particularly with improv or experimental kind of music, and working on reading charts, odd time, whatever, improvising, soloing. It's just the best way to practice music. Well, just playing with people, but particularly with a common interest that everyone's so fucking committed to. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on a few things that I want to focus in on. So one of them, funny enough, was the artwork, which I was going to ask. There are 4 koalas. Are they supposed to be the band members, or are they just kind of separate?
Yeah, like yes and no. We've kind of left that pretty open. Okay. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I was wondering. So is it down to us to kind of guess at who's who? You're not going to reveal?
No, I like that. I know that Zach on his Instagram definitely like revealed who's who.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like a select your fighter, like Tekken style, like isolate the character. It was just missing like the stats and pros and cons and the special move and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the artwork was done by a great mate of mine, Chloe McAllister, who I met through just teaching drums. Started teaching her years ago. Awesome drummer. And yeah, she just showed me a lot of her art. And so she has done all the Milton Gogh art, the Shamin album, Dropbear Lodge, and a heap of other things. So and it's like, having a Brisbane, or distinctly Australian, or where we live in Brisbane, artist who gets all the references and really helps. And I think too, something we like to do with all the different bands I play in is think about like have the aesthetic of the area that the music represents, try to come through in not just the music but the art, the band lore. We do that a lot with Milton Gogh. That's another group I play in. But yeah, no, the Dropbear. Thanks for checking it out, man. How'd you stumble across it?
Well, it was actually a friend of mine that mentioned it to me. He was like, check this album out. Initially, he only linked one track, and I listened to that track, and I was like, I need to listen to everything. So I listened to everything, and that's really what piqued my interest, and it's been on my rotation for a while. And I think what stood out to me, and this is my pitch to any listeners and viewers that haven't checked it out yet, it feels very fresh. I think it feels very, very different. And I think your point around the artwork and not taking yourself too seriously helps with accessibility, and it's not off-putting in a way that some way that groups present themselves could be. And yeah, I mean, one point again that you raised was around soloing, and what my favorite track from the record, I wanted to ask about that one, which I often gets stuck in my head, is 2323, Rumba of the Beast.
Yeah.
Which is quite a frenetic, intense piece. And there's a section, I think maybe halfway through, where I don't know how many bars, but you're given kind of space to solo over a certain section. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that with the hits, dun, dun, dun,
exactly.
Dun, dun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That was.
Can you talk us through how you approached that section? If it was something that you were like, I would really love a little like drum break here, and you knew exactly what you were getting into, or how did that come about?
I'm trying to remember. It's pretty like a lot of that stuff's pretty organic. It's just like, I mean, Zach the bassist wrote that song, paying homage to like a Sydney microtonal mathcore band we love, Basil's Kite, who you should check out.
Okay.
Pardon me. And that was kind of like, Zach was like, oh, this is my ode to Basil's Kite. But, you know, I think it's much more than that, because Zach's such a brilliant writer. But yeah, we kind of just, with that song, I think we just sat on a lot of the grooves for ages. That was one of the easier ones to get together.
Okay.
Nowhere near as complex in terms of different parts as the other tunes. But it's funny you ask about that solo section, because I specifically remember trying to solo, and like I don't like counting anything. If I don't have to, I'll just internalize it all.
Yeah.
Like that's end game, right? But I remember with that section, I was trying to solo and count because it's just so fucking weird. And I remember getting the dudes in the band to like literally like cue at me, because like I felt like I was thinking too much, and then like on few takes we did of it or whatever. Yeah, so it's funny you say that, because I think you can hear that in that section. Like I'm just like, oh, there it is, there, you know, like kind of hanging on for dear life.
But I think it works. I think that's maybe why it's my favorite piece, because of its energy. But you also mentioned the word groove, and you guys are sitting on those grooves because there's a really good. There's the opening section, and then it goes to this groove where you're kind of a bit more locked in. But that happens in so many different tracks where there's this like change of gears.
Well, I mean, it's all relative, right? Like we go into a groove, but if you were to show maybe someone who listens predominantly to like, I don't know, let's say country or pop, they'd be like, what the fuck, you know?
Fair enough. Absolutely.
Relative to what was happening, I totally agree. That's something I try to be more conscious of, that, you know, I think I'm very slowly getting better at, is just to not throw, you know, all the toys out of the pram straight away.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just because it's that contrast, and you know, it's like, oh, it's settling through a bit, and then it's just like another auditory onslaught like 30 seconds later.
yeah. It's I guess you need to strike a balance between everything and get that form.
Yeah, but then I'm so glad you checked out the whole record, because I think hearing songs like that in isolation don't really do the rest of the record justice. You know, that was like when we were kind of pitching it around, and I'm surprised that it was featured on Bandcamp Daily, like right at the top. That was we were like, what the fuck, this is awesome. But there were comments there regarding the variety of styles throughout, but still we're trying to keep it an aesthetic and still sound like us. Yeah. Which
isn't an easy thing to do at all, because it's like you need the variety, but like you said, you also need that uniformity. Like this is a sound, and it has a lot of different hues and textures, but it all kind of threads together. I mean, when you said you were surprised that you were on the Bandcamp Daily, I'm honestly not surprised. I think it's a fantastic record. I'll link it in the description for anyone that hasn't listened, but do yourself a favor, check it out if you haven't already. One quick one.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate that, man. Sorry, I just want to say thanks. Yeah, that's awesome.
My pleasure. My last question on the album, is there any, because you've mentioned that yourself and some of the other band members are kind of referencing or paying homage or channeling a certain sound, a certain band. Was there a drummer or a drum sound or an album that was really present in your mind when you were preparing the drum parts?
That's a really good question. So the engineer we worked with went through uni together.
Mm.
He has a really good idea at this point of what I like and with what project. So Cody McWaters, who the poor fucker, he still records all our obscure projects when he is like killing it. He recorded, I don't know if you heard of the Chats.
No, I haven't.
They're like blowing up Aussie sort of punk rock. King Stingray. Anyway, he won like a few arias, which is like huge.
Yeah.
And he still records all out, which we're just so grateful for. But he's really good at it, and he has such a good idea of what kind of drum sound I like.
Yeah.
And it's funny, a lot of the recordings I've done through the years with him, like I've probably recorded over, at this point, I'm going to say off the top of my head, 10 different albums with him, more probably. And he, just watching his sound develop too, and I think that's really influenced how I play in the studio. It's definitely a related process for sure. And having faith in a producer that you work with a lot really, really helps. I kind of just leave it up to him. The drum kit is made in Brisbane, which is pretty gnarly. Like I kind of hate gear, but then I love gear at the same time, Like I've got all different cymbals and, and I don't know, heaps of different things. But that's just, I don't know, that kit felt right. It's from Brisbane, bigger sizes. But in terms of drummers, I don't know. Like I definitely used to listen to so many more kind of YouTube kind of videos with drummers and this kind of thing years ago. And I'm kind of getting back into it a bit more, but I think I went too hard on all that when I was younger. And it's like, I just kind of realized, at least for me, I was like, I just need to go and do the work, like I know what I need to do, somewhat. So just go and kind of do it. But I mean, a lot of my favorites are like Mark Juliana, who I was lucky enough to have a lesson with and various things in Canada. Such a lovely person. I'm just trying to think, like Lewis Cole.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm a bit of a Volta nerd. Like, I've got that exact Vibes kit that John Theodore used to use, like that kind of. I got it shipped over from the States, so I love like early Volta. I don't listen to it a lot anymore, but like that's a big influence. That was definitely a big influence on that record. Stuff like Dillinger, really like bands like the Contortionist, if you know them. Kind of like modern prog. Prog's a bit of a dirty word, right? I'm just trying to think. I don't really think about these things anywhere near enough. Hey, like for someone who's predominantly a drummer, I feel like I'm kind of out of the loop sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, first off, I think the Volta similarities or inspiration is I totally get and hear that. I think I read somewhere as well that you'd had lessons from, or you'd worked with Thomas Pridgeon and Dave Ellich as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I had a couple lessons with Dave in LA that were insane. I had a lesson with Thomas Pridgeon on Skype too. That was interesting. The lessons with Dave were amazing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I needed at that point in time. And just someone that's so honest, I was definitely a lot younger then too, but he was just like, it's just great to hear when teachers are like, okay, that's good. They're just being objective. Like, that's really good. That's not great. I just really appreciate that kind of feedback. And technically, but a lot of Australian drummers, Simon Barker, Ken Eady, Tully Ryan from Sydney. There's so many out there. But I grew up playing a lot of like rock and metal, with my like early gent band, right? Like that was in like 2000. 7, 8, 9, we're kind of doing that a bit earlier. So what I was kind of listening to was like a lot of post-hardcore music, you know, like at that teenage years was like stuff like A Day to Remember, which I haven't listened to in a long time now, you know, but that's the kind of stuff that was just around. Parkway Drive, yeah, and then got into more heavier stuff like Born of Osiris, After the Burials, Blood Runs Black, like all that Black Dahlia Murder. Like I was full into a lot of that and played a lot of more tech, kind of borderline deathy sort of stuff. Yeah, but I haven't played double kick. Like I filled in for a band I used to play for, Voltazash. I don't know if you came across that. It's like a jazz metal big band I used to play in. Was in maybe 6 or 7 years with Zach, and yeah, it's pretty raucous. We did a few albums. It's like Zappa style big band.
Nice.
Yeah, slight tangent there. Sorry, man, but yeah, I hope that. Pardon me. Answered. Yeah, it's what. Yeah, you're sort of asking.
It's very interesting hearing that you in I guess your formative years you were in a certain place, at least when it comes to listening to a style of music or being inspired by a style of music, and then listening to Dropbear Lodge, which I guess is fair to describe as an experimental or avant-garde jazz album, but there's absolutely flavors of prog rock, math rock, which you can hear, but then having you kind of expand on your influences just gives a better picture to the DNA, I guess, of the sound, which I just found it very interesting. I was making the connections in my head as you were speaking.
Yeah, that's sick. Makes me think of like other bands while we're on this tangent, like Ocean Size.
Okay. I need to write this down.
UK prog band. I don't know if you like stuff like. Have you heard of Carnival? I'm not sure what kind of music you're sort of checking out at the moment, Dan. But yeah, I'll send you a list of stuff to check out.
Please.
But yeah, that like the Aussie prog sound. So bands like Gogh, Dead Letter Circus, Carnival, really great bands. But while I was doing all that rock and metal stuff I was playing in, like my parents were just so supportive and encouraging, got me involved in volunteering to help out, like put on events. So like that's where I kind of, without even realizing it, inadvertently, like kind of started to learn how to put gigs on and do more artist management. Like I didn't even realize that until like at least 10 years later. I was like, oh, that's where it all started. But also so playing in a brass band where like the average age of the band was probably like 55.
Yeah.
So, and then school orchestras, and like I just, looking back on it, it was amazing, but I was just like so into just whatever. Most of it, some of the classical stuff was a bit of a drag, but I wish that I had done more tuned percussion when I was at school, but like I just wasn't fucking into it. I just wanted to play drums,
Yeah.
I've revisited that like when I finished school and since then. So yeah, like bought a xylophone a couple of years ago. Had a year of tabla lessons. I got really into that for a bit. Like I feel like I just have so many interests and things I really like doing. Playing more piano. And just composing a lot too. I really like composing. Yeah.
I mean, I read and hear it so often how for any musician, whether it's a drummer or a guitarist or a sax player, dabbling in at least one or two other instruments expands your palette so much. And I guess especially for drummers, which drums aren't a melodic instrument in the same way that a guitar or a piano is, it just really widens your perspective. And I think it's just super useful. I remember my dad was always saying, initially I started playing bass, but then he was like, try and learn another two things on the edge, and you'll see that they will all kind of inform each other, and it will improve your overall understanding of the individual instruments, but the music as a whole. I mean, for you, it sounds like you had a whole kind of catalog of things that you were trying out. And I was going to ask, when you were in that phase of at the height of your prog or metal phase, do you think you could, if that version of you saw yourself now and the kind of projects you're in now, and this kind of multifaceted role, do you think that's something you would have been like, yeah, I'm absolutely on that trajectory, or like, no way, that's never going to be me?
It's a really great question, Dan. I think like the roadmap kind of made sense, but it's kind of paradoxical to say that like I could, say it would have happened. Just thinking about, I think that what happened in my formative years was really, really important. But I think that all the amazing teachers I've had over the years, I can think of one I had in particular, Andrew, who was like, he was a solid drummer. He wasn't the most amazing drummer, but it didn't fucking matter. He was an incredible teacher, and he really encouraged me to want to study music. And he was like, just, you should study jazz. And like, I was playing in the brass band and playing in the jazz band at school, but like, I was listening to just bands like, again, it's like classic 16. I don't know what 16-year-olds are listening to now, but, like Deftones, Tool, whatever, just like, leave me alone in my room playing RuneScape, listening to Tool, My Life's So Hard, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just doing that, and it's like when I was getting close to finishing school, yeah, I've kind of like, I think back to when I was in year 11 and 12, my last 2 years of school, I was not really worried about what was going to happen, which, happens potentially when you're a bit younger or whatever. But I kind of just was always like, what do I love doing? I'm just going to do that. And I think something I know I've always been really good at is just making things happen, making opportunities, booking, like you just have to go and do stuff with music. You really do.
Yeah.
It's so important because one thing will lead to another, and there's always good things around the corner, as like Disney as that sounds or whatever. It's so fucking true. Just go for things, meet the right people, and then, yeah, everything has just come from, well, a multitude of things, but definitely how I learnt when I was a kid and a teenager, and the support of parents and family and that kind of stuff. That they definitely instilled that drive in me to do what I wanted to do. And that's something I say to all my students all the time. It's like, whatever you want to, particularly the ones that are nearly finished school, it's just like, and with where all the world and that's going at the moment too, so much fucked up stuff happening, like creativity, I think, has never been like more powerful and had more utility in the world. But yeah, I guess, yeah, things have just led to another. Like, I met a lot of people at uni, but then from there, like how I got involved with, if I think about the label Artist Catharsis, my mate Joey and I and Kodiak, who met at uni, we sent emails blindly, went to Sydney, did the gig, 6 years later or whatever. Like now I'm working for the label, and I have been for 5 or 6 years. And then we brought Noah out to Brisbane, and that's just one anecdotal thing I can think of in terms of like tracing what's happened. And like with the first time I went to the Banff Centre, like I just put an application in and didn't think, anything of it. And that's a whole nother discussion, talking about that. One of the most profound experiences I've had, but also one of the most overwhelming. I think I was 23 or 24 then. It felt like jazz Olympics or whatever. But just learning a lot from those scenarios where you feel like, you are right at the bottom. And that's important, I think,
Yeah.
Because it makes you hungry and you want to learn and want to develop. Yeah. I hope that all makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And I think you've explained it very well. From what I heard, one of the core values that you can kind of trace through is that, and you said it yourself. Um, you're out there, you're hustling, you're doing stuff, you're sending emails, you're shooting your shot. The worst thing that can happen is that you get rejected, but you just keep going. And I think in creative fields, you need to have that mindset, that kind of determination and perseverance to go for it, and also to if you find yourself in a situation or a circumstance that is overwhelming, or like you feel like it's outside of your comfort zone, viewing it as an opportunity to learn will be so beneficial to you. I mean, I had the privilege to speak to Bill Bruford last week as part of another series of interviews we're doing, and his biggest piece of advice was like, his biggest piece of advice was like, do something that is so far out of your comfort zone, because that's how you learn. So for any aspiring drummers, listen to this. That's a good takeaway for you, I guess.
Absolutely. I think just like diversify your interests if you can, I think what a musician looks like, whatever that means, whatever kind of music you do, various, different elements there to the makeup of what a musician is, but how they function in the current age is, even remarkably different to 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It just always keeps changing and shifting. So, like I teach a lot because I love it, but I used to play years ago in a heap of corporate bands. And I just like left them all and got a job at like a supermarket doing night fill, and I was like infinitely happier. Like I've had a multitude of like, in the grand scheme of things, not difficult jobs, but just non-musical jobs. And I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, but like the things I used to do to make a week work were definitely not sustainable, but like teaching and then going and working overnight at like a supermarket and then going to uni and then like gigs, rehearsals, like it's just crazy. Hey, but I'm so glad I had these periods where, but then that's a whole other conversation of like how to be a healthy and sustainable musician and creative. You feel like you have to constantly be doing things to stay in check. But I think I definitely had a moment, I don't know, I reckon low to mid 20s where I was like, had a crack at, like, I remember I was like, I'm going to try Instagram properly for a year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, personally, I was like, this fucking sucks. It's so draining for me. Like, I was like, oh, and then it's like, do I want to this, when I was like 19 or 20 or whatever, early, like this idea of, I want to be this drummer and do this and this and that. And it's like I'm only 31. It's not like I'm super old or anything, but thinking more about the idea of just doing more stuff for me, because music is quite selfish at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that's fulfilling, or making this Dropbear album, like that's, and you want people to hear, as many people to hear it and all that kind of stuff, obviously, but it's like more shifting that focus and that in terms of like, why am I doing music? Or maybe not even shifting, just bringing that back into the foreground, like you would have maybe had when you have that childlike wonder when you're playing, when you're a teenager or whatever, that we've all had, right? You're just like in the garage, just slamming it out to records or whatever. And but I think, I kind of just, it's like, I'm so okay now with not, like in an ideal world, it's like, you do all this stuff, and if that happens, that's great. And I've been really lucky, but also worked really hard to have all these wonderful things that have happened. But I think if you're just working on your craft and, also just helping curate a scene or your community or getting involved, then all the, it's another, let's go with the theme of Disney, another Disney quote. I don't know. that I'm just being a fucking idiot. But you're working on something like really small, so then all the bigger stuff will start happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I definitely could have explained that better. But the idea of, I think people gravitate towards what if they can see something that's happening that's positive or has an effect, they want to be involved in that or check it out, or they get drawn in,
Yeah.
So yeah,
that makes sense to me. And it seems like it's funny because you mentioned you're 31. I'm turning 31 this year, and some of the things you touched on resonated. So I think it's I guess where you're at in your life, and the way you view the world and yourself when you're 20 versus when you're 30 is completely different. And bringing those things into the foreground, like you said, is something that I guess it goes beyond just the craft and the music. It's about you doing something that you find fulfilling and makes you happy, and perhaps that thing isn't what you thought it was when you were 20, but you know what it is when you're 30, and that's okay.
Totally. Yeah. And there's no, it's like a lot of the stuff that's not taught about, thought about or taught in like schools or universities. Yeah. Like a problem I have with how, not to shit on all university, I'm just more an observation is like a lot of these kind of tangible real life kind of, I guess, problems or what's another word for it? Just like obstacles you come across, yeah. Right? And you maybe don't feel like you're equipped with the tools to deal with them, or more so you've heard of how to approach these kind of things. Can be quite difficult, but something like this year has definitely been like I had this gig last month where we got to open for the Sun Ra Orchestra, wow. Which was just unbelievable. And improv, like we played a free improv set for that, and that was just a really special night. But at the start of the year, I was like, I'll start PhD. I purposely haven't booked because I went to Canada twice last year, and then America and Japan, and I was like, all right, because I'm getting married in September. Really excited.
Congrats.
It's gonna be amazing. Thanks, man. So I was like, I want to keep the year more open, and I'm kind of working out how to transition as also an artist. But, it's time. I'm really excited to look at the next stage of life, so having kids and settling down a bit, but not to say that I can't still do all these creative things. But I guess this year is, more about less about music.
Yeah.
Even though I just started a PhD, which is super ironic. But I don't think, well, I know that there won't be as many things happening. Like last year was crazy in the best way possible. But also like feeling like I don't have to do as much, or I don't want to, and doing other things outside of music. So when you kind of go back to music, feeling more recharged or inspired,
Yeah.
Because I think the music has to come from somewhere, and my favorite musicians, they clearly like have something to say that's come from somewhere. You just it's such a simple way to think about it, but that's something I noticed. Like all my favorite, I'm like, why do I? And it's like they're all like, they're not just like, here's this thing in 7, like that's fine and that's great, but you can hear them on their instrument, and that's like a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I
think.
I mean, that's as good and as Disney a thought to end on as that's really good. I never would have thought we'd get to such a profound place talking about the marriage and happiness and fulfillment, but which is all completely valid. It's all completely valid.
And I mean, it all relates in some way, shape, or form. Hey,
absolutely. I'm also super glad that RuneScape got mentioned in this interview. I've been
that's so good. I've been dabbling again recently, actually. Hey,
Yeah.
like as like a downtime kind of thing. I got a mate who's into it, and I'm like, oh, this takes me back. Hey, like Tips Fedora drinks energy drink, you know.
Yes, yeah. I did the same thing actually. Like I logged on for the first time in however many years, and it was immediate nostalgia. It was good.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for your time and for all of your words of wisdom. I'll go.
Oh, I don't know about that, man. I'm just sharing my, what I've been doing, I guess. Yeah.
It's all gold. It's all valuable. I'm gonna go through the interview and pick out all of the mini bands and all the references. I'll chuck all of the links in the description for anyone watching, and I'll also add in obviously links to the latest Dropbear Lodge album along with the other projects you mentioned. Your website as well. I can chuck that in there if you want.
Yeah, I definitely need to update that. Hey, I made that a while ago, but totally go for it. Like I need to give that a big overhaul. But yeah, whatever you feel like doing, and yeah, so we didn't talk more about drums.
No, it's okay. Like you said, it's all related, and I think we spoke about things that maybe don't ever get taught. Like you said, but they're also at the same time super important. So we did a good thing.